You know that feeling when you hit the brakes in your car? Of course you do. But what if I told you that the way a massive 80,000-pound 18-wheeler stops is based on a completely opposite principle? It's a really cool story about two totally different problems that led to two brilliant and fundamentally different solutions.
It feels so simple, right? You just press a pedal and your car slows down. It's something we all do every single day without even thinking about it. We just take it for granted.
Okay, here's where it gets wild. This is the central paradox we're going to unpack. In your car, you are actively applying force to make it stop. But in that giant truck, the driver is actively releasing a force to make it stop. It's totally counterintuitive, I know, but that flip in logic is the secret to keeping these massive vehicles safe.
So, this isn't just some dry lesson in mechanics. Think of it more like a story of innovation, born from two huge but very different challenges. On one hand, you've got the puzzle of stopping cars that were getting faster and faster, and on the other, the monumental task of taming the insane momentum of a freight train.
So, at its core, here's what's happening. Brakes don't just magically stop a vehicle. What they really do is convert all that energy of motion into heat. The earliest brakes were, believe it or not, literally a block of wood pressed against a wheel. And that worked, kind of, until cars got faster and got rubber tires in the 1890s. Suddenly, those simple blocks just couldn't handle the heat and friction. Something better was needed, fast.
All right, let's start with the system you're probably most familiar with, the one in your car. As automobiles got quicker, the old mechanical brakes, which were just a bunch of cables and levers, couldn't cut it anymore. They'd stretch, they'd snap, you'd get terrifyingly uneven braking, and you could easily lose control.
And then, along comes an inventor named Malcolm Loghead. And fun fact, he later changed the spelling of his name to Lockheed, yeah, that Lockheed, so people would pronounce it correctly. Anyway, he had this breakthrough idea. What if you used a fluid to transmit the force? It would be way more effective and even than any clunky mechanical linkage. And the science that makes this all work is called Pascal's law. This is really the magic ingredient. Because you can't really compress a liquid, any force you put on it at one end is instantly and equally sent to every other part of the system. That's what ensures all four of your brakes grab at the exact same time with the exact same force.
So the whole process is super direct and responsive. You press the pedal, that pressurizes the fluid in what's called a master cylinder. That pressure shoots through sealed lines to each wheel, forcing the brake pads to clamp down on a spinning rotor. The friction stops you. See? It's all about adding pressure to make it work.
But, and this is a big but, there was a terrifying flaw in this original design. All four brakes were connected to the same little pool of fluid. So if you got even one tiny leak anywhere in the system, you'd lose all your fluid, all your pressure, and, you guessed it, all of your brakes. Instantly.
Now, let's switch tracks, pun intended, to an even bigger problem. Just imagine trying to stop a mile-long freight train. A single leak couldn't just be an inconvenience, it would be an absolute catastrophe. This problem required a completely different philosophy of safety.
The solution came from a guy who was just 22 years old at the time, an engineer named George Westinghouse. After he personally witnessed a horrific collision between two trains that couldn't stop in time, he became obsessed with finding a better, safer way.
His first idea, called the straight air brake, was a huge step up. Instead of brakemen running across the tops of cars turning wheels, the engineer could apply all the brakes at once by sending compressed air down the train line. But it had the exact same Achilles heel as those early car brakes. If that main airline broke, you lost everything. All braking power was gone.
And this gauge, right here, was the heart of that whole early system. Everything, and I mean everything, depended on being able to build and send pressure down that line. If this needle went to zero, the brakes were completely and utterly useless.
The problem was that the system wasn't automatic. Or, as one person put it, a broken coupling left the train with, quote, without any brake power at all. Think about that. If a car came unhitched, it became a runaway missile. Westinghouse knew he had to do better.
So, in what has to be one of the greatest aha moments in engineering history, Westinghouse just flipped the entire concept on its head. He thought, what if, instead of adding air to stop the train, you used a constant supply of air just to hold the brakes off?
And this is the genius of it. An engine compressor keeps the whole system charged with air, usually around 120 psi. That air pressure is constantly pushing against these massive springs at each wheel, holding the brakes open. So when a truck driver hits the brake pedal, they're actually opening a valve to let air out. That drop in pressure allows those powerful springs to slam the brakes on.
So let's just put these two systems side by side for a second. When you really look at them, you realize the difference isn't just about air versus oil. It's about two completely opposite philosophies on what it means to be safe. This right here is the absolute key to everything. Hydraulic brakes are fail-active. That means they fail in the go position. You lose pressure, you lose your ability to stop. But air brakes, they're fail-safe. They fail in the stop position. Any major leak, and the brakes come on automatically. It's designed to stop no matter what.
And now you can probably see exactly why this fail-safe thinking, which was perfected for trains, eventually made its way to our heavy trucks. The risk of a hydraulic brake failure on a fully loaded semi-truck is just, well, it's unthinkable.
And you know, there's actually a specific tipping point for this. Right around a gross vehicle weight of 26,000 pounds, hydraulic systems start to become too heavy, and they generate way too much heat to be effective or safe. Above that weight, air brakes aren't just a good idea, they're a necessity.
And the advantages for big rigs are huge. I mean, beyond that critical fail-safe design, the supply of air is literally endless. You can't run out of it. Small leaks don't cause an immediate total failure like they would with hydraulics. And it makes coupling and uncoupling trailers super simple and robust. Oh, and you can use all that compressed air for other stuff, like that iconic air horn.
But this story doesn't stop in the 1800s. Of course not. Both of these brilliant inventions have kept evolving, getting safer and a whole lot smarter over the decades.
Remember that deadly single-circuit flaw in cars? Well, that was finally fixed in the 1960s with something called the dual circuit master cylinder, which basically gave you two independent brake systems in one car. It became mandatory in 1967 and has saved countless lives. Then came anti-lock brakes, or ABS, which use computers to prevent skids. And even today, air brake systems are getting better, with modern trucks now using air disc brakes for way better stopping power.
Which, of course, brings us to the future. With the rise of electric vehicles and their regenerative braking and the incredible demands of self-driving cars, we are right on the edge of the next big shift. The fundamental challenge of turning motion into heat is still there, but the way we control it, well, it's ready for its next great invention. So what do you think that's going to be?
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more How Meets History.